Good afternoon, and thanks very much, Jake. And welcome everybody to this inaugural session of EATx, which is a send-up or a takeoff of the TEDx series. So basically, this is our inaugural session featuring the Testa Center in Sweden. The EATx series is basically a series of online events that's showcasing the individual institutions that are part of EATRIS. It could be institutes, it could be some experts, it might be specific services, or it might be specific projects, basically depending on what we see as perceived interest. And the idea is that it's a good way for us as a community to get to know each other a little bit, get to that level of detail necessary for us to really get a good understanding of how we want to work together, and also to do a little bit of the hear a little bit of the stories, the success stories that we have managed to achieve in these first few years of EATRIS. Speaking of EATRIS, EATRIS is, for those of you who are not aware, as this is a public session, EATRIS is a European infrastructure, which means that we have member states who are our shareholders, actually. They're our owners, and they've come together saying that translational medicine as a concept is important for us to improve value to society by making better medicines, targeted therapies, and really advancing the concept of translational medicine as a tool in order to make personalized medicine a reality for the future. We're a distributed infrastructure following a hub and spoke model. Based in Amsterdam is the hub with about 23 people working day and night to basically bring people together to form those multidisciplinary research teams to support the development of novel diagnostics, vaccines, and therapeutics. We're disease agnostic, phase agnostic. It's really preclinical through to early clinical development. And the objective is to bring together the right people to make sure that you are patient-centric in your research and that you're going to make the regulators happy with your data packages, which is more complex than it sounds. So anyway, without too much further ado, I'm going to hand over to our partners in Sweden who are live. So the Testa Center, based in Sweden, is a public-private collaboration in itself, and it's most relevant for both spin-out companies, early-stage companies, late-stage companies, but also academia who are looking for a pilot-scale testbed for biological products. Could be monoclonal antibodies, vaccines, proteins, peptides, these sort of things, providing non-GMP resources and up to BSL2 and 500-liter scale. Fully staffed with a professional staff to support. I'm not going to take over more of the information provision because they're going to tell you all about it now. So I'm going to hand over to Jesper, who is in the lab at the Testa Center in Sweden. And I'm sure Jesper would be happy to have any questions during the session. So enjoy and hope you find this a relevant session for us. And we'd love to hear your feedback afterwards as well, please. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Anton. You almost took my whole presentation, which is really good. Hi, everyone. No, that's perfectly fine. Hi, everyone. My name is Jesper Hedberg. I'm the director of Testa Center. I am now in one of our bioprocessing labs. Today, we don't have an active project here in this particular lab, so we're free to present from the lab, which I generally think is more fun than to just sit in front of a desk. So I'm going to speak today for roughly 30 minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit around Testa Center, the background of Testa Center and what Testa Center can offer. We'll show a little video around Testa Center and its capabilities. And then I'll talk a little bit more about Upsala University, which is the local university here in Uppsala where we're placed, and the projects that's been running here in Testa Center earlier this year. We'll show another film from Professor Miranian's work. And at the end, we'll hopefully take some questions if we have some time over. So with that, I have Magdalena Eggens here on the back side of the camera to handle the technology. So you should see my first slide. So as an introductory, Testa Center is a test bed for biology and technology around biological production. So what does that mean then? So it means that we are here to enable researchers, companies to verify innovations. Very commonly, the actual innovation is done prior to entering Testa Center. But Testa Center is then a production-like facility which is a relevant environment to verify an innovation, be it a biological innovation or a technical innovation or a digital innovation, but to be able to verify that innovation in a production space. And by being in a relevant environment, we can also accelerate the industrialization of these innovations. Then we also have a third leg to stand on, and that is to secure the excellence around biological production. The development of biological products and biological drugs have been extremely fast the last 10 years. And we're actually lagging a little bit, both in Sweden as a nation, but I would say that that goes for the whole globe. We're lagging a little bit in competence and awareness around biological production for both drugs, vaccines, and general biological products, since the development has been so fast. So we're here to support that as well. Next slide, please. So just a very, very short summary. We're on the Uppsala site and we're owned and operated by Cytiva, but it is a joint effort between Cytiva and the Swedish government. So if we have a look at the next slide, which is a slide not for you to have a detailed look at, but just an overview of the top 200 selling drugs during 2018. So the slide's actually a little bit old, but the picture looks pretty much the same today. And you can see that a lot of these drugs are actually large molecules. It's the colored blobs here and there. And if you do a little bit more careful count of the drugs at this point during 2018, I think it's around 75 of those that are actually of the 200 that are biological. And if you do a count of the top 10 selling drugs today, depending a little bit on timing, there's between 7 and 8, sometimes 9 of those top selling drugs that are biological, which then emphasizes or underlines the importance of being able to produce these drugs, and also the development that has gone really fast. This picture did not look like this 10 years ago. Then it was basically no biological drugs there at all. So with this as a background, the next slide shows basically the summary of Testa Center. This is the background of biological drugs and products is identified by the industry, of course, but it's also identified by governments. So the Swedish government, through Vinnova, the innovation agency in Sweden, together with Cytiva, decided to establish Testa Center to support the growth of life science, and more specifically for Testa Center than the growth within biological production. So we are a non-profit, separate legal entity. So we are at the site of Cytiva here in Uppsala, but we are separated from the big commercial company, Cytiva. So the intention of Testa Center is not to generate cash. We need, however, to cover our own costs. We are open both nationally and internationally for academics and startups. We're also open for larger companies, but I would say that academics and startups might be our focus groups to a large extent. And we describe ourselves as an industrial infrastructure lab. So what does that mean then? This means that our lab, this lab that I'm in here today, with the equipment that we have in these labs, should mimic, or actually are the same as a production floor, meaning that we have true production equipment in these labs, and the way you work in this lab is supposed to be the way that you work on a production floor. Now, having said that, we're still non-GMP, so in that sense, we're a research facility, and we're mostly based on single use. So this is a bioreactor with single-use technology, so you culture in these plastics bags, which is the modern way of doing production today in bioproduction. We also are open for universities and other educational organizations to conduct education here in Testa Center. So Upsala University has several student courses every year actually in Testa Center on these types of equipments for their students. So what do the projects get when they come to Testa Center? So of course they get access to this lab. The projects get access to the equipment that we have here, and they get access to technical support. The technical support that we provide from Testa Center is not covering whole project executions. The intention is not that we should take assignments. The intention is that companies and research groups come here and perform the projects themselves. However, not everyone are comfortable with running a bioreactor in 50-liter scale perhaps for the first time. So we can provide the support to get you going. But the intention is not for us to get an assignment and then we deliver purified protein. Since we are on the Uppsala site, we also offer all types of things that are needed in the lab. So general lab equipment, facility management, waste management, security, what else? Wi-Fi printer, office rooms and stuff like that. What you do not get is direct resources into your project. So as I said, we're not taking on assignments. You do not get the chemicals that you need for your projects. You need to bring them on your own. We cannot harbor all the chemicals in the world for any potential project. And we cannot also harbor all the consumables in the world for any potential project. So you need to bring your own consumables like plastics. Apart from that, it should be a relatively all-inclusive experience. And speaking more about the instrumentation, on the next slide, we have some of the capabilities, or basically the main capabilities that we have in Testa Center summarized. So the labs, 4 labs, are designed to be able to harbor what we call a start-to-finish process. So all the way from frozen cell vial, cell culture in bioreactors, harvest, and then protein purification down to purified protein. So when it comes to bioreactors, we have both rocking and stir tank platforms for mammalian and for microbial bioreactors. The capabilities for microbial bioreactors are currently up to 50 liter, but we're commissioning a 200 liter bioreactor in the spring next year. And the capabilities for mammalian cell culture is up to 500 liter. Along with that, we then have harvest solutions to match that scale. So either filtering solutions by TFF for depth filtration or centrifugation solutions, both for batch centrifugation, which is not really scalable. So if you want to do a scalable centrifugation, you need the continuous centrifuge, and we have that as well. And then for the downstream processes, we have basically, since we're a legacy downstream site here in Uppsala, we have basically all the instrumentation that you can think of. So everything from the smallest ECTA start all the way up to the full-fledged production system ECTA process with the hardware for the columns as well. When it comes to analytics, we actually made the decision quite early that we should have some analytics, but not a lot. Again, if you start to think about any potential project, what kind of analytics they may need, you can perhaps imagine that you could fantasize about a lot of assays to be set up. So we cannot do that really. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. So we went a little bit other way. We're keeping the analytics that is needed to be able to run a process, which means then cell counters, blood gas analyzers, microscope, metabolite analyzers, and for proteins, chromatography, analytical chromatography, SDS page, Western, and spectrophotometry. If you need any more advanced analytics than that, we have partners that we can engage for the analytical developments. Just recently, we also commissioned a BSL2 lab, so Biosafety Level 2 lab. We did that with the basis on we getting lots of requests for both viral vector projects and vaccine projects. So a lab just like this is now equipped to harbor BSL2 class organisms like adenovirus, adeno-associated virus, influenza, rotavirus. For the clarity, we do not culture COVID-19 and we do not culture any other hazardous organisms as well. This is a general view of how projects come through Testa Center. So typically we have a get to know you phase in the beginning where we interact and basically see is it doable at all in Testa Center? Do we have the basic equipment that is needed for a project to come here? Can we harbor the organisms, for instance, that they want to take here? And then typically we have a relatively long plan and prepare period. Many of the projects are not set to do a scaling up from day one. So you need to plan that And typically a planning period goes anywhere from, I'd say, 1 month up to half a year is not at all uncommon. We've actually are in discussions with projects where the planning phase has been even longer than that. So that's not at all uncommon. Then comes the execution phase in Testa Center, where you are expected to be here. Just for clarity, you may not have the complete competence set that is needed for a start to finish process. And if that is the case, we can also direct you to third-party collaborators, contractors that reside here locally in Uppsala that can help your project execute. For instance, you might want to learn how to, or need to learn how to run a 50-liter bioreactor. We can accommodate that training, or if you want to contract someone to run it for you. And then there's a wrapping up period where you send your gears and your protein home. So we're non-profit. We're a do-it-yourself non-GMP lab for biological production. We're a private-public partnership. You get access to unique equipment. You get access to expertise. You pay per usage, and you get a professional network. And what almost is all the projects that come here are after is that they reduce the risk in the project when they go up in scale. So risk reduction and process know-how is most important for most of the projects here. And by that, you increase the project value. Very important also, the last thing to say, any result and IP that you as a project generate in Testa Center, you own and take with you. So no strings attached to Cytiva, and it's perfectly fine to conduct the project under confidentiality. So we're very happy to sign a CDA here from Testa Center. With that, we're going to switch a little bit to see a small video around Testa Center. So if you give us a couple of seconds, we'll share that one.
Sweden is a small country up in the north. However, it's a big life science nation. Behind its success, Sweden has a long history and culture of working closely together. The academia, healthcare, and life science industries work closely together. This has created new innovations, saving lives and alleviating symptoms for millions of patients globally.
Tystnadtagning.
Biological drugs and products are transforming medicine and promise future targeted treatments for a range of conditions. However, in order for these powerful products to benefit everyone in the world, new technologies, processes, and tools are needed to drastically improve efficiency of biological production.
The bioprocessing industry is growing rapidly. Nowadays, 8 out of 10 most sold drugs are biologics, and they are used to treat cancer and immune disorders that will help to promote global health. In Sweden and at Testa Center, we support development of new technology for the industry. Here you can be part of that journey to grow the life science industry.
In the heart of Uppsala, in a life science intensive hub, Testa Center was established as a joint effort from the Swedish government and the private company Cytiva to help researchers and companies succeed in the growing global market of biologics.
So going from lab scale to production scale takes time and money. And here in Testa Center, researcher has the ability to reduce risk in their project and by that increase the value of the project. To do those experiments yourself not only shows scalability, manufacturability, but it also builds competence within your team, which often is very important when you take the project forward.
In Testa Center, entrepreneurs and researchers come together to tackle some of the global health challenges of today, bridging the gap by supporting companies and researchers to verify their innovations, accelerate industrialization, and secure excellence.
So we get a lot of interests for Testa Center and the environment that we have here, both from academic groups, but also from commercial companies, startups and larger companies. So the future looks really bright, I think, and I'm really looking forward to keep on running Testa Center together with researchers. So I think the team spirit in Testa Center is great. So we all work together and we all have a common goal, and you can really feel that in the interaction between both individuals but also projects.
So that was the little video around Testa Center. It's always a little bit weird to see yourself on film. I never get used to that, but just one word around the together piece. What we experienced now the last 2 years, we inaugurated in August 2018, so we've been up and running a little bit more than 2 years, is that typically we become a team. Not only the project that is here running in Testa Center, of course they are a team already from the beginning, but we as Testa Center staff becomes a part of that team so that we do things together. So we plan together, execute together, and perhaps troubleshoot together, which is a really good way of working, I think, because these are complex processes that we need to master. Okay, so let's see. I'm thinking that we should back to my slide presentation. Here we go. One word around the Upsala University. So Upsala University has a long-term commitment together with Testa Center, which we are super grateful for. This means that they've entered a 5-year agreement with us, and they having then access to one of our bioprocessing labs for a number of weeks over each year. During these weeks, Upsala University both conduct education. So roughly half of those 25 weeks per year they use for education, and half of those weeks they use for research projects entering Testa Center, needing to get access to this kind of equipment to take their research forward. So Albert Miranyan is a professor at Upsala University who conducted some experiments this year. We've had, I think, between 6 and 7 academic projects in Testa Center since the start from Upsala University, but this is just an example. So Albert has a filter application that he believes is applicable in a bioprocessing setting. He's done his proof of concept experiments in the lab scale and now wants to do it a little bit in larger scale to show the functionality of his filters in production scale. So let's see what Albert says.
This was a fantastic opportunity for us to go from lab and test our filter in a real industrial environment, since Testa Center is a hub for testing new emerging technologies on pilot scale and indeed enabling the transfer of small academic projects perhaps or projects originating in startups to test things on a larger scale and in real industrial environment with real industrial samples. Every time the scale of things changes, this entails new challenges. Going from lab to the pilot scale, it is a challenge in itself. And for us, the challenge was the logistics, the planning, executing the project. The success of our project was mainly thanks to the planning and all the support that we got from the staff of the Testa Center. So there was a lot of preparation that went into the project, but once we got started, so things went smoothly and we obtained really great results. So it is indeed a paper. It's paper thin, it's flexible. So if I didn't tell you that this is paper, you would never feel the difference between this one and any other product before. Okay, so that was Albert. I'm closing in on the end of my presentation. So a couple of words around how you can get in if you like. So our primary channels for communication is LinkedIn and our homepage. So please visit us on LinkedIn or our homepage. And if you like, you can like us and share us. What you also can do is you can Google our YouTube movies. We have a YouTube channel, so the movie that you just saw on Albert or Testa Center is available on YouTube. If you have any questions or inquiries, please contact us through contact@testacenter.com. And then next slide, I think it's a picture of the team.
No, it's a picture of all the projects that's been in Testa Center through the last 2 years. So the big one, the big box in the middle is the projects that have executed experiments in Testa Center. And we have some beneficiaries and associated technology projects around there. There we go. It's quite a small team. It's a skeleton crew, really. And you can imagine that we cannot run 4 projects in parallel at the same time. So you need to be here to run your own projects. We're here to support you and to plan your project, but you need to be here also. And with that, I'll say a big thanks to EATRIS for letting us present Testa Center here today. It's a great way for us to expose our services and the opportunities that are available for researchers and companies in Testa Center.